What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and the overall markets. I'm also going to break down what an AI tool is telling us about Tesla stock, as there could be more downside coming for the month of October, which would likely be followed by more upside for November and December. So I'm going to show you what the AI tool is telling us. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. So in my previous videos, I was talking about how when you look at Tesla stock, this resembles kind of like a left shoulder right here. This is like a head, and then this could be kind of like a right shoulder that's about to form. And then we have this gap down here to fill at 395. Obviously, Tesla was at 480 a share when their deliveries came out. And deliveries were quite good. We had 497,000 deliveries, but that news was priced in quite quickly. Also, record energy storage deployments. That was also very, very bullish, as we had 12.5 gigawatt hours of energy storage products that were deployed. So all that was great. Tesla kind of like, pumped only to start dumping back down. So going from basically the 480s, almost 500, all the way down to like the 390s to fill this gap is a very significant move down for Tesla. And there's no guarantee we even bottom at 395. We could even go lower. But like I said before, this is something that we were expecting. This is not really a surprise because I was showing you guys these indicators using a very cool tool known as Forecaster. For those who don't know, Forecaster uses AI technology to not only forecast what stocks will likely do, but you could use the tool to look at all kinds of data. And if you guys want to sign up with my link down below, please check out my link. I highly recommend this tool because it could help you understand data. So look at the seasonality chart right here. What typically happens is between April through like almost the start of October, we're typically bullish. This is what the chart did 5 and 7 years ago. Notice that Tesla was on a very, very nice uptrend. It was bullish from that period. But then what typically happens is once we get to October, what happened 5 years ago was we were bullish, then we started dumping in October heading into November. And then as we get to the end of the year, we start to rally again. Right, that also happened 7 years ago. We also saw Tesla start to dump in the month of October, only to rally towards the end of the year. And now this year, as soon as October starts, right, Tesla goes from 480 all the way down to 417. And we're going to see if it continues to fall to fill this gap over here. If it goes even lower, that could be another signal. But despite the fact that Tesla may sell off, what typically happens is we do like to basically bounce once we get to November and we start to push. There's a 92% correlation between the chart right now and what we saw 5 years ago and 7 years ago. We're basically doing the same thing that we typically do. You could also use this tool to look at the daily averages on October. So typically, this would tell you that October 2nd, October 3rd, they tend to be bearish days. But once we get to like October 4th or like the fourth day of October, we tend to be more bullish before we turn more bearish by mid-October again. So that's, you could actually look at every individual day to see what Tesla typically does. October is historically the most bearish month for Tesla. And one of the stats I also show you guys is that historically, when it comes to seasonality, October tends to be the most bearish month. We're only green 1/3 of the time. I pretty much go over this every single day. So you guys had warnings about this for quite a while. Tesla also has earnings on October 22nd. We'll see if it could bounce off that or not. But for now, I just want to mention that there is some downside risk for Tesla. So let's use our projection tool right over here. So looking at our projection tool, what this is telling us is that the most likely possibility for 3 months out is that Tesla may continue to correct. We could correct to the 390s, if not the 370s. There could be more downside coming by, the end of October. But then once we correct by the end of October, what typically happens is we start to rally by the end of the year. So if Tesla dumps to below the 390s or 390 or below, that's a potential buying opportunity for it to start to rally towards the end of the year back up to $500. That's the most likely case. In addition to this, by looking at the correlation of our charts, we're using an AI learning tool to kind of look at what the charts have done during these different periods. So in 2025, 2021, 2019, 2016, for example. And what typically happens is this 1 month out. So Tesla may dip another 3%, or it could dip another 7 to 20%, depending on how extreme the sell off is. But then, even if we do get some kind of pullback move, it's typically going to be followed by more upside as time goes on for a big squeeze higher. Now, I don't think the super bullish case makes the most sense right now since we already pumped so much. So these cases look more probable that Tesla may dip a little bit more. another 7% to that 395 gap fill before we start to rally for 500, or we could be dipping to like the 350s. Those are different cases, but either way, everything kind of suggests that Tesla could be dipping more. There could be more downside potentially coming to Tesla for that 395 gap fill or below. But even if we dip to 395 or even the 370s, it's another buying opportunity because we might be running for $500 by the end of the year. And that's most likely what Tesla's going to do. So, based off the AI projection tools and our seasonality, that is what Tesla will likely end up doing. You can also use this tool to look at Tesla's fundamentals. So the average fair value is actually at 325 a share, which shows that there is an argument to be made that Tesla's a little bit overvalued. I'm not saying that it's overvalued for like the longer term. Long term, it's still very bullish, but short term, based off what analysts are rating it, it does, you could make the argument that Tesla's at a very high valuation, right? Much of their revenue still comes from automotive sales. We're not necessarily making lots of profits off the robotaxi yet, but in the future, that's going to be Tesla's new norm. On top of this, I want to add that you could also see what politicians are doing. Are most politicians buying or selling Tesla? You guys can see all of that if you use this tool. And then seasonality indicators, which are very, very cool to see what Tesla's doing, are also very good for understanding what Tesla typically does. And our overbought and oversold indicators also show that Tesla is getting a sell rating. So it got a sell rating as we went up here. And then this is basically indicative of more downside. Typically, when you get these sell ratings, it does dip a little bit more before we see some kind of monstrous bounce. So that is what our indicators tell us. This suggests that Tesla has more downside coming, and that aligns with my head and shoulders case right here. We might pop heading into next week, retest the 440s and consolidate, but then there is that risk of us dipping to not only the gap fill at 395, but potentially lower for like the 370s. Even if we come down to fill this second gap, it's nothing that scares me because this will be another buying opportunity. Because what typically happens is if we are bearish in the month of October, we like to form a bottom quickly. And then as time goes on, once we get to November, we should be looking for a big rally right back up as we get into the December period for new all-time highs. It's going to likely make a big recovery move, but we're not ready yet because a lot of this news is being priced in. It also depends on the shareholder meeting and how earnings goes, so keep that in mind. There could be big buying opportunities for Tesla. The 4-hour also has kind of like a head and shoulders like pattern, so we'll see how that goes. But keep in mind, there might be a temporary bounce to 440 before it ends up turning. If you look at something else like the QQQ, which could also influence Tesla, our indicators basically tell us that the QQQ is at risk of a 5% correction before it continues to rally to new all-time highs 3 months out. 1 month out, we're going to be at risk of a 2 to 7% correction before we see a big rally. That's what this is telling us for the month of October. That is the most likely case. And when it comes to seasonality, we're known for being bearish in the month of October, although the move is kind of delayed. Our indicators do suggest that there might be some downside on the QQQ. Now, right now, we're still bullish. There's no sign of us, dumping. There's no sign of us tipping 3 to 5% yet. So we could continue to rally for some time. We could even try to go for like 610. I was talking about how it might be dipping a bit more for like 598 or so. Then we could try to bounce for like, these highs. But eventually we're going to form some kind of top. And once the top is in, we're going to be looking for some kind of corrective move. This could still happen. But then once the QQQ forms its bottom, once the correction's over a 3 to 5% correction, something that's not that insane, then we're going to be looking for another bull run for the month of November. And then by December, we're looking for new all-time highs. Something like that is what this could be doing. There might be a temporary pullback slash correction that could be coming. The market also is fully pricing in the rate cuts. So eventually that's going to be priced in. And as we rally, there's a bearish divergence. We're bullish for now. We could continue to make new all-time highs, but I want to warn you guys of a potential pivot in the upcoming weeks as we get deep into October. And there is that risk of some kind of corrective phase. So follow the price action. We're bullish for now on both SPY and the QQQ. We're still bullish, but we're going to see if we get some kind of pivot and start filling some gaps. There's still lots of gaps left on SPY to fill, so we'll see how it goes. So what does this mean? What am I trying to tell you guys? I'm trying to tell you that right now SPY and the QQQ may be bullish, but Tesla is weak and it's looking more bearish compared to the markets, which means it's losing strength. Because Tesla's losing strength, Tesla could start dipping to fill its gap at 395, could even dip to the 370s in the upcoming weeks. But even if that happens, I'm not scared, I'm not phased, I'm not worried. I think that it's going to be a big buying opportunity. Our AI indicators tell us that Tesla may dump, but then it's going to be followed by a monstrous squeeze to finish the year, and it's going to be absolutely incredible, and there's going to be a lot of money to be made from that. So with that being said, Am I bullish or bearish on Tesla? Short term, we're looking at a little bit more bearish. Actually, we might bounce a little bit first before we see the bearish move pan out. We might bounce to 440 and consolidate first before we start to dip. We could be forming like a right shoulder first before we dip to fill that gap at 395. I think we fill this gap, and then maybe we go even lower than that. A little bit lower would be completely fine. What would be a blessing is if we end up testing the previous high right here at like 370. If we start dipping that low, so like this high right here, that would be a very, very nice move. But that's a bit of a stretch. We'll see if we dip that much. If Tesla does dump, it's a nice buying opportunity because I think we still run for $500 by the end of the year. So there might be a big dump coming, then a big buying opportunity for an end of the year squeeze. I think that's what Tesla's going to likely be doing. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' weekends. I wanted to make this video nice, short, sweet, and simple. So if you guys want to sign up for Forecaster, you guys could use my link down below. It's a very, very awesome, handy tool for using indicators to forecast what the market will do and understanding projections. And I recommend it. So if you guys want to save 10% on your membership, please check out my link down below. And as far as Tesla goes, we're still very bullish for the end of the year. But for the short term, it might dump a little bit first. 395, even the 370s are possible, but then it could run back to 500 by December/January based off what our tools are telling us. All right, so that's based off seasonality, which is panning out so far. It also depends on other factors such as like Tesla's earnings, the shareholder meeting, and individualistic pieces of news, alongside what the QQQ SPY and the markets also do. All those factors affect Tesla, so we have to take it one day at a time, which is what I'm going to do. But I'm just making this video just to give you guys an idea of what could end up happening, what AI indicators tell us, and why you should be very cautious when it comes to buying shares, at least for now, until we get a very, very nice dip, which I think Tesla will eventually do. Thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' days, and I'll be back very soon. I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace out.